It's been 5 years coming, but Troye Sivan is back with his third proper album, Something to Give Each Other. I've been a huge fan of Troye since Blue Neighborhood dropped 8 years ago. He's actually one of the few YouTubers who have parlayed their initial fandom into a career with longevity and actual charting success. Sivan has never been shy about being an openly gay pop artist. It's said that his coming out video had been tied to him wanting to publicly be out before signing with EMI Australia, who he'd been in negotiation with. EMI actually did send a congratulatory email. That identity has been a core of his appeal as an artist, and him never backing down from that is why I've always been a fan of his. That's why I'm glad to say that this album rocked my world. Something to Give Each Other is his most authentic and free album to date. It's a celebration of queer desire, with occasional bouts of Sivan's melancholy for good measure. I feel like this is a great expansion on the sound palette and ideas that he had on the much underrated COVID-era breakup project, In a Dream. That project was mostly produced by Oscar Gores, who returns on this album and has produced 7 of the 10 tracks. Also producing on this record is hitmaker and Dua's go-to guy Ian Kirkpatrick, as well as Australian producers Styles, Fuego, and others like Novador and Zone. The last track on this record was actually co-produced by the iconic A.G. Cook himself. Long story short, Sivan really did stack up some of the best that pop has to offer today to create this record. The album cycle kicked off in July with lead single Rush, which managed to hit 77 on the Hot 100. The single was a buzzy summer jam with a music video that inspired a wave of admiration and later discourse for its unabashed reverence for modern queer culture. The emphasis on choreography and its upbeat sound and chanty vibe set expectations for a strong dance record. Aptly named after a popular poppers brand, the visuals really hinted to me that this record was going to be heavily inspired by the early 2000s pop aesthetic and sounds. The video actually reminded me of Dirty by Christina Aguilera, but this one's for twinks. The follow-up single Got Me Started continued that impression of the record. It samples fellow Aussie artist Bag Raiders' Shooting Stars, which is a meme song. I saw some question whether or not the sample makes or breaks the song, but I enjoyed the track. The visuals and choreography again elevated this song for me. The music video set in Thailand really stuck with me. The latest single released alongside the album on October 13th, One of Your Girls, changes up the mood with a more mid-tempo groovy jam about experiences with questioning men. The track's production actually includes work from Max Martin, who had provided it as a gift that was uncredited. Its music video features Troye in drag as a stunning pop girl icon alongside former Disney star and current half-naked musician Ross Lynch. Something to Give Each Other thematically centers itself around ideas about heartbreak, kindling new connections in the queer community. I found that this album was sonically coherent yet diverse. There's some bops and ballads in there. Troye doesn't quite break any new ground for pop, but rather bends what exists and what works into something that truly feels like his. I adored Blue Neighborhood and Bloom, but those projects really felt beholden to the soundscapes of their times. Both of them emerged during a time where pop strayed away from bombast and was more minimal. Here, Troye really feels unleashed, just 10 clean tracks that tempt you to replay the record just as it ends. Rush as the lead and the record opener really feels like a statement. This is going to be a fun, different record. Rush abandons detail for repetition. Majority of the lyrics are a variation of I Feel the Rush. The verses add detail, but the song's about atmosphere, emotion, and evoking the heat of a moment. The second track, What's the Time Where You Are, continues the dancey vibes. It opens with some lines in Spanish about a crazy night. Troye croons ever since about a situationship across different time zones. The pre-chorus's shaky vulnerability implies relearning to love again after some time away from dating, while the chorus playfully asks questions and comes off as sweet. International Straight Shot to My Heart is such a strong line, but the way that he sings God, I Wish It Was You really resonated with me. It's very romantic in a casual way. One of Your Girls is just so groovy. The way that Troye uses background vocals to emphasize his voice and the way that he floats over the beat is effortless. It's a irresistible, fun track that's both glib about the subject matter about hooking up on the low, but also very honest. Only Troye could make a lyric face card, no cash, no credit really work. The occasional acoustic strings and the production feels like a studious revival of early 2000s pop. It's very stylish. It's a tribute that works. The only collaboration on this record is In My Room with Guitarrica De La Fuente. This one's a cute R&B track about the nature of crushes. Guitarrica De La Fuente's lines really complement Troye's. The sentiment here and the pre-chorus really hammer in how crushes always seem to bring us back to childish, teenagerish feelings of being helplessly in awe. The outro's fascinating because it name drops the record's title. Still Got It reels us back to classic melancholic Troye. The opening organ evokes a funeral of sorts. This felt like a modern Blue Neighborhood track. It's nostalgic nostalgic about running into an old ex and remembering the best parts of them. Said hello like an old colleague really gagged me as a line. It's a cousin to that sentiment of please don't ever become a stranger whose laugh I could recognize anywhere. That outro at the very end reminded me of track 10 in the best way possible. We love a good emotional vocal deconstruction. That's why Can't Go Back Baby right after hits so well. This one's a proper breakup anthem. The sample of Jessica Pratt's Baby Back really feels contextually perfect. Verse 1 paints the scene of betrayal, while the pre-chorus outright contrasts how his ex wakes up with him but is clearly also seeing someone on the side. The pre-chorus changes the second time. I love when artists do that, to show that he now lays with love to take his place. This is self-love and maybe someone else one day. Probably the most poignant track. Got Me Started perfectly works next to these tracks because it does fit that theme of moving on. The sample does capture the mania of realizing you can find new love and crush on someone new after mourning a breakup. My favorite line has to be, we should experiment even to the detriment of whoever's on the couch. It's so wordy, but he makes it work. The bridge is the second mention of the title on the album, and I cannot give Sergio Reyes, Troy's choreographer this era, props. That dance is stuck in my head. Still is an absolute bop. Kirkpatrick's production and the cool, chill, but seductive energy on here is really different. I'll be honest when I said this one took a moment for me to get into, but it's becoming one of my favorites. The chorus itself and the falsetto that he uses, it feels very distinct compared to the other tracks. The pre-chorus that really pops up mid-song almost feels like a bridge. The arithmetic of songwriting is very fascinating. It had me stumped on this track, and we love a good outro that just lets you vibe out and appreciate the instrumental. It's a highlight. Honey was another track that took me a minute to get. The chorus itself feels like a prayer. Give Me the Courage in particular evokes some classic prayer. I cannot remember the name of it, but the instrumental and how gorgeous the background vocals really sold the track on me on later listens. Verse 2 kind of confirms my suspicions about this feeling like a religious sound. It's very throwbacky. It's not dated. The acoustic elements thrown in there with the electronic sound feel very distinctly Troy. This is a motif in a Dream that I really like that he expands on. The final track, How to Stay With You, has to be my favorite. A.G. Cook's co-production on this really works. The lyrics are devastating in how relatable they are. I had recently just exited a situationship, so this one really did hit me. It's about not knowing what the future holds about a new romance. He's already contemplating if his family would like this guy, but he's also lost and thinks that time is running out. I was personally gagged when he sang he turned his pussy out. I mean, that line reminds us of his humor. The pre-chorus proves that Troy and his writers really know how to engineer and set up a song, but the outro with the sax solo, right before he starts singing about starting again, just the way that it's left open, it's very mature, it's very of the time. It speaks to the evolution of Troy as an artist. It's very human, it's very charming, it really does fit into the themes of the overall record. Something to Give Each Other is a great pop record. It's a fun, personal, relatable album for the girls and the gays. My only complaint would be how short the album is and how I wish some songs would have a bridge just to extend the songs a bit. But compared to other records this year, other pop records, I don't think it succumbs to hunting for a TikTok hit or feeling very bare bones. Each track is satisfying and works individually. For that, I'm glad to give this a solid 9 out of 10. And that's a wrap. Thank you so much for tuning in to this short review. I'm currently working on the Katy Perry Prism 10-year anniversary video essay. That one I'm really proud of and I'm excited for you guys to see it. A quick shout out to my members, a quick shout out to my subscribers. Feel free to chime in below. I love discussing and trying to interact with every single comment. What did you guys think of this record? What was your favorite moment? What's your favorite visual? What do you think should be the next single? Let me know down below in the comment section, and I cannot wait to see you next video.